you have an IEP, having an updated IEP where the accommodations are very clear, and having an updated assessment are probably the two most important things. Because most colleges, while they're going to look at records that the student brings them, they're mostly looking at when's the latest assessment and making sure it's not more than a year old. So
really,
this is something that a lot of families have some trouble with, because the high school maybe did a triennial their sophomore or junior year. And so according to triennial rules, you would need to do it for another 3 years. And so therefore it's going to be after they graduate. So many schools say, well, you're in your senior year. We already have an IEP that's working. We don't need to do assessments. And parents think, oh, that's true. But what the problem is with that is if the assessment is more than a year old by the time the student starts in the fall for their first year of college, many schools will consider that to be too old of an assessment. So what we recommend is that in your senior year, you conduct an assessment. And if it can be done in the middle of the year, towards the end of the school year, that's going to be best, because then it's the newest, it's fresh. And same goes for accommodations. So we have this rule of thumb for all accommodations in every IEP across the board. You want to make sure accommodations are very clear. Especially when we're transitioning, whether it's transitioning from middle school to high school or from high school to college. The accommodations shouldn't just read extra time, right? It should say extra time on tests in a separate setting for these subjects, or it should say extra time to complete and turn in. Maybe the students' needs are that they are able to do the work in class, but they need a little bit of time to kind of do their own edits. So maybe they need to turn in a day later. Maybe they need extra time to process information, so they need more time on their tests. So, but if it just says extra time on work, how is the college to know what the student's unique needs are? Because the college doesn't have an obligation to assess. So they may look at that and say, I think that's too vague. We don't really know what's being provided, so we're not going to provide it. So you want to make sure we use our WH questions all the time, right? Our who, what, where, why, when. We want to use those with the accommodation. When is this being provided? How? It just makes things clear for everybody to be on the same page.
That's great. You got something to add, Vickie?
Yeah. So on that, colleges are obligated to provide reasonable accommodations. So I think parents also need to be, and the student need to be prepared that, the school will respond in order to provide, and it's equal access to the education for the student. So it is a little bit different. The college can refuse the accommodation for a couple different reasons and be within their right to do so. If the accommodation puts excessive financial and administrative burden on the institution, if the accommodation would try to change the nature of the academic program or classroom or the curriculum, if it's going to give an unfair advantage to the student, lowering academic standards, just significantly altering what it is that you're required to do to complete the class. And then if it's of a more personal nature, so if the student had a one-to-one aide in high school, a college wouldn't necessarily need to be required to provide personal care, attendance, personal readers, personal devices. Whereas in K through 12 under the IDEA, if your child needs a tablet, the school is obligated to provide it, right? If they need one-to-one, they're obligated to provide it. It's just a different realm once we get to college, right? It's kind of like, well, you're 18, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, kind of deal. So I think that's important for parents to know that distinction.